Good morning and welcome to another edition of Council Matters. I'm Mick Fitz, and we've got one of those dark old autumn mornings out there. If you're going out, take a brolly just to be on the safe side. As Quentin Tarantino, he was talking about guns rather than brollies, but it's better to have one and not need it than to need one and not have it, because it may rain out there today. Later in the programme we'll be talking about the Kilmainham Arts Festival, and before I do start off and introduce our first guest, just a little something for you. Swords Airport Bus Rapid Transport. Sounds good, doesn't it? Lovely brochure that they've sent out to me. They're going to be holding consultations, so if this is relevant to yourself, why don't you go and look it up. Swiftway.ie seems to be the website that you go and look for. It's called the Bus Rapid Transport, and it'll take you out from the city centre out to the airport. Sounds a damn fabulous idea. But enough of all of that and enough of me, because I'm now joined in the studio by Sarah Ryan. Sarah, good morning.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, Sarah. I've described the first session as life after politics. Just to remind listeners, you were formerly a councillor for Dublin's. Was it the South Inner City?
It was the South Inner City. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you look at the local elections that we've just had, and the by-election out there in South West Dublin, does it? Do you start getting itchy fingers and you think, oh, I should be in there, or do you miss it at all?
Everybody who's involved in politics misses the cut and thrust of it, I think. But I think at the moment politics is changing so quickly, and it's just such a kind of it's difficult to get things done just the way things are set up at the moment, that I think there's other ways to do or to achieve the results that politics can.
Mm-hmm. Looking back at the 2009, because for different reasons 2009 was seminal for both you and I. I mean, my abiding memory of 2009 is that Fianna Fáil got a hammering in the local elections, lost the plot, and then gave us jobs for life. So thanks to Fianna Fáil, I have a job for the rest of my whatever working days, couple of years that it is. If I look at your figures, if you got that poll again, chances are you would have been elected this time round. If you had have polled those numbers, were you tempted to go back in 2004? Are you at a stage in life where you think, I need to make an income, I need to put down some foundations?
No, I think that there's a way of achieving or scratching the itch of politics without having to actually run and without having to be involved in politics. I'm working for an organisation that uses people power to achieve results for people. Like, to me, that's what politics should be. Mm-hmm. It should be a way to democratically make decisions. Unfortunately, I don't think it's doing that. I don't think it's achieving that for people. But I think that I've managed to find a way that kind of that scratches that itch, but also is a career as well.
That's very interesting to say, because what I was saying to people right throughout this year was that what we've just had with the Euros and the local elections, it was the first social media election, to me it reflected it as well, in the sense that if you have a look at the breakup of who got elected and where votes went, it tended to reflect new media rather than old media. How do you feel about that, Sarah?
I think that's right, but I think there's a lot more to it than that. I think that what we're seeing it in other countries as well. Like, people are bored of the status quo. I think people have just been consistently let down by politics and politicians. I think that they've been overpromised to and under-delivered for, and I think that what we're seeing now is the result of that, and that's been happening for a long time. We had a government that was elected with a huge mandate that has, I think, been disappointing in its reform agenda and disappointing in what it's delivered in terms of changing politics. And I think now what we're seeing is a much more, it is social media, but it's also viral in the sense that people are just sick and tired of the whole thing, and they're starting to look elsewhere. We used to have a much more cyclical political system. I think now it's, every man for himself and God for us all, in many ways, and people are looking for something different, looking for something new, and looking for something that's actually going to make a difference to some of the big concerns that they have on a daily basis. And Sinn Féin and the United Left seem to be delivering or seem to be believable in their plans to deliver on that.
Yeah. I would take issue of where's the united left. They don't seem terribly united from what I'm saying, but that's a separate...
Well, I never know what to call them, so because there's all so many names. So we'll say Paul Murphy just on this case because he won the by-election this weekend.
No, I've been calling him the AA stroke SWP stroke PBP stroke SOCP.
The Alphabet Party, we'll call them.
Yes, well, that's you got to be careful, because if you call them the Alphabet Party, you might end up with a vowel movement. Anyway, enough of all of that. But do you think it's quite interesting, because if we go back to even just 2009, the local and the Euro elections that I covered in 2009 were very much what I would call a print media and an audio media event. Mm-hmm. What we've had since 2009, we've had Twitter, we've had Facebook, we've had YouTube. I'm seeing it now as much more of a visual medium in terms of that local grassroots sort of politics, in a way that it probably wasn't there in 2009. How do you feel about that, and what impact do you think that will have?
I think it allows voters to drive the agenda better, which is a good thing. I think it makes it very apparent very quickly what people on the ground are saying and what they're feeling, and we're seeing a lot of that at the moment. You know, I saw on Twitter and on Facebook pictures of tens of thousands of people showing up to burn their water tax bill. Yeah. You know, like there's a lot shorter of a cycle in terms of people getting their message across. But on the other hand, you know, I think that print media and radio media are all still, you know, hugely important. I think that there's a danger with social media in that, you know, 24-hour or one tweet or you know, one Facebook post dominates the whole, you know, the whole agenda for way too long than it should. And, you know, if based on my experience in the last number of elections, you know, if social media was the indicator of who was going to win, the people who actually got elected would have never been the ones that got elected. You know, there's a lot of parties are working differently on social media. Some are better than others. But, you know, if tweets and Facebook posts were votes, you know, we'd have a very different landscape right now, I think.
That reminds me of Rory Quinn talking about Dylan Haskins when he said he's got more Facebook friends than he got votes. I've since said to the Labour Party that quote may come back to haunt you.
I think it will.
I think it will too. Just last on that one, Sarah, because I don't want to labour this point. When I look at social media, it's very, very easy to win a campaign on Facebook. It's a bit more difficult when you get into the real world. Do you think people are being misled in the sense that, and what you would call the United Left or whatever you want to call them, even this morning I'm seeing we're going to continue this water charges campaign until victory. Now, quite honestly, I think that whatever the merits of the case, one way or the other, this is giving people absolutely false promises. It's an unrealistic view of politics. How do you feel about that, in the sense that the real world doesn't necessarily agree with the virtual world all the time? Or do you think that the real world will be sufficiently influenced by what's happening out there on the streets and captured on the camera phones?
Well, I think that what, you know, the left are doing very well with the water campaign is that they are actually capturing a sentiment that exists on the ground. It wasn't created on social media. Social media is what's giving it legs, giving it airtime, etc. In terms of empty promises or broken promises, I mean, who's to say where that campaign will end up? But what I will say is that, you know, if broken promises stopped you from getting elected, like, Labour wouldn't be in government. So, you know, I mean, I don't think that's going to curb anybody's enthusiasm. I think they're promising to deliver something that's, you know, that's something that's really particularly annoying people and particularly sensitive for them. And they're showing up, you know, they're showing up on social media, but they're also, like I mentioned, showing up with their feet. And they're walking, they're marching. You know, I think 100,000 people marched at the weekend, you know, about water. So I think this has become a real crystallises people's frustration with a lot of things into one issue. And I mean, I think something eventually will have to give. Whether it's achieved by Paul Murphy and that campaign, I don't know.
And yes, even as we speak this morning, Paddy Power were offering 5-4 on a Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael government for the next election. So have we changed that much, or have we just coalesced into different camps?
I mean, I think Fianna Fáil have some some long ways to go before we should be talking about government at all. You know, in the same way as as I mentioned, I'm disappointed with the level of reform that this current government have introduced. You know, I'm equally disappointed with the level of internal and policy reform that Fianna Fáil have introduced. I don't think Fianna Fáil is in a state to go into government. I don't think it's time. I think the party owes it to itself and to, you know, people who used to vote for it and may vote for it in the future to come up with a reasonable policy platform, a vision for the future of Ireland the way it should be, you know, a stance on issues that matter to people. And until then, you know, talking about going into government is just fairy tale stuff.
So, to paraphrase, if you can't manage your own affairs, you're not really fit to manage other people's affairs.
Exactly.
Yeah. Sarah, something we're very interested in is life after politics. What's been happening with Sarah Ryan since politics? Tell us. You've got to make a crust, I presume. You've got to have a career. Tell us, what have you been pursuing?
Absolutely. Well, I always had a career, and I worked abroad in consulting and in the States. Delivering on kind of large capital projects, energy projects, cost reduction type stuff. But then I also worked in insurance for a number of clients. So recently I was approached by One Big Switch and asked would I be interested in combining my campaigning experience into a career. So I came on board as Director of Campaigns and the COO of One Big Switch. We run campaigns where we get people to sign up for free in as big a numbers as we can, and then we lobby providers. We did an energy campaign earlier this year. We're currently in the middle of a health insurance campaign. We lobby those providers and say we've got X amount of people here who are looking for a reduction, who can no longer pay this bill, and what can you do for them? So we launched this campaign last week. We're nearly at 10,000 sign-ups. We're overwhelmed with the response. People are logging on to onebigswitch.ie. They give their name, they give their email address, and they give their county. That's it. And we basically run a campaign from there, going around to providers and saying the numbers are growing all the time. Health insurance is no longer affordable for people. When we ran the energy campaign, we asked them what they wanted to see in terms of future campaigns, and health insurance was 100% the overwhelming answer. And we're seeing that in the numbers now. I mean, 10,000 within a week is a lot, and that's, you know, continuing to grow.
Okay. What was the thinking behind this? Because my feeling is that the reason why somebody like myself would sign up and essentially ask you to go and do that work for me is because there's a convenience side to it without a question, but also the economic side. Are you saying that if people essentially do this work on their own, you're not really likely to get the best deal, that it's the economies of scale that's going to get you the deal rather than some personal relationship you might have with an anonymous broker?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, I think people have been shopping around when it comes to health insurance for a long time. The reality of it is that since, you know, 2007, 2008, upwards to 300,000 people have dropped their cover, but largely responding to affordability. Those people tried to shop around. Those people had like the option to look for a better deal. The reality of it is that across the board there's a problem with affordability of that health insurance. You know, we have lifetime community loading coming in next year. We know that the vast majority of people who've dropped out are younger. So what we end up having is a system that's disproportionately ageing, driving policy or driving the premiums up, and a system that's not going to be sustainable. Everybody has a story or has heard a story about somebody, you know, and waiting lists in the public sector. I think the public system is overwhelmed as it is, and what we need for a healthy health insurance system in Ireland is a good span of age groups. But that needs affordability. So I think that the economies of scale is the vital thing here. I go into a provider, which I'm doing at the moment, and talk to them about how many people we've signed up. Obviously my bargaining power to a provider is vastly increased if I've got 10,000 rather than 5,000, or 100,000 rather than 50,000. So when I go in and say, I've got these people, they want to sign up, they'll sign up with you, but give us the best deal you can give. Give us the best discount you can give across a broad range of your products. And whoever gives us the best discount will be the provider that we will offer to our members.
A couple of things then come to mind just listening to that, Sarah. My familiarity with the Irish insurance market is largely through motorcycle insurance, where you had very little choices. So it didn't matter what sort of deal you were going looking for. It was largely a seller's market because there were so few. How does that work out in the health insurance? Again, I don't have private insurance, so I'm not familiar. How are we served, shall we say, by suppliers?
Yeah, I mean it's obviously a little bit more complex than the energy, which was just like
Sure.
for like and switch from one provider to the other. The way it will work is that my focus when I'm in negotiations is to get a discount across as broad a range of policies as possible, because obviously the policy that's of interest to a 31-year-old female who's planning on having a baby in the next year is very different from the policy that's of interest to the 55-year-old male
Sure.
who's got 3 children. So one policy would never work because it's not going to work for us to sell one policy to people because it will only be suitable for a small number of people. So the focus will be on a range, always trying to get as many of our members satisfied that something is there for them. Obviously, it's possible that some people will feel like that what they have already is better than what's within the range that we get. But what we found in the energy campaign was, as consumers, people were armed with this offer. So a lot of people used the offer in energy, for example, to go to their existing provider and say, I've got this one big switch offer, it's cheaper than you, what can you do for me? And got a discount that way. So it's not just a matter of taking this offer, it's also about leveraging it to get a discount with your existing provider.
Why is that good for you guys, though? If somebody is going to, if I go into you and I say, oh well, Sarah Ryan's going to get that for $100, why won't you give it to me for 90? I mean, that's great for me, but what's in it for you?
Well, financially, there's nothing in it for me if somebody goes to another provider. But we are, we do make commission to fund future campaigns, and we are a business. But at the same time, we're also, a lot of us come from political backgrounds. A lot of us come from all kinds of campaigning organisations from before, and we are all interested in the concept of people power and actually, delivering difference on the bottom line for people. So if somebody uses the offer to get a discount with their existing provider because of a campaign that we ran, really, that's fine by me.
Yeah. If you were to go, if I was insurance company A, and also with my other hat on as a consumer, if you came to me and you said you've got 50,000 people signed up, as a consumer, why is it not in my interest to wait until you've got 100,000 signed up and you've got more, if you like, negotiating power?
Because we do have to, the campaign, the nature of the campaigns and the reason why we run them in the way that we do is that we do need to get a certain amount of people signed up. We do have a cliff face. We have to close, the campaign at some point and have a final number. We got 60,000 in the energy campaign. We were delighted with that. There does have to be an end point in sight.
Course.
We find that people sign up if there's a cliff face faster. We run the campaign with that in mind. I have to have some kind of closing figure in mind with the providers to better the negotiations. But obviously, we want that number to be as high as possible. We want people to go onto onebigswitch.ie and sign up. There's no cost. It's free. If someone was in the pub and said to you, here's an offer that'll get you €100 potentially if you just sign up your email address, you'd do it.
Yeah. So if you've signed up for the electricity switch, do you have to re-sign up again for the health insurance?
Yeah, you're a member of One Big Switch, but you have to register your interest in the health insurance campaign.
Okay, so you'd have to sign up for, well, at least register for each individual campaign.
You sign in. You click you click on the health insurance campaign. You register your interest there.
Sure. What was the if you like your feedback from the electricity or from the energy campaign? I mean, it was very prominently promoted. I'm just wondering how was that received and how successful was it?
It was a huge success. I mean, it was an experiment. One Big Switch is a business that started in Australia. The goal was to get 25,000, the same as this campaign. We got 60. So, and the feedback that we got from people, like I said, was that they used it, if they didn't take it, they used it to get a better deal. Okay. And we saw a lot of media, that was noting the fact that the existing providers that didn't win the bid also reintroduced new campaigns, started to offer discounts in response to it. Our goal is to mix up the markets, to send a message to the government, to send a message to the providers that something needs to change. And we definitely achieved that with the energy one.
Well, look, anything that will bring more of a service culture to this country, I think most of us will support. Sarah, just before we conclude here, how do people get involved? What do they need to do to sign up? And can they still sign up for the energy one, or is that complete?
The energy one is complete, but we will be reopening, so I'd advise people to sign up. They literally log on to onebigswitch.ie. They give their email address and the county that they're from, and we take it from there. It's as simple as that.
Okay. Just because we always think it's simple, but it's ONE, not the number one.
ONE, big switch.
That's right.
Yeah.
And how long is this one going to run for, Sarah? Do you?
Another 3 weeks or so, I think. But I'd advise people to get in early, because obviously every week I'm meeting providers, and the more numbers that sign up, the more my bargaining power is.
Yeah. And how did the budget help? Is that does that give people an even greater incentive to start shopping around for health insurance?
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of hopeful there might be some levy decrease or something in the budget for health insurance, but no such luck. So I think as far as people who are struggling with affordability of health insurance today is much the same as yesterday, in that there's no significant price change there, and things will continue as they are unless something gives.
Yeah, but all those extra tax rates or whatever it is that people are going to have loads of money now, and it's going to be a wash, and we're all going to be buying houses and everything. So
yeah, maybe.
Who knows? Sarah, any chance of seeing you back in the front line of politics, or are you happy to leave that to others at the moment?
I'm definitely happy to leave that to the others for the moment.
Yeah, look, gender quotas are coming in, Sarah. So we'll be keeping a close eye out, because let's be honest, it was mainly men that got us into these problems. So who knows, maybe we'll have a new generation, a new gender with new ideas. So Sarah Ryan, thanks for your time today, and thank you for sharing that information about One Big Switch. So thank you then, Sarah.